Welcome back to the Investment Association's podcast on innovation. And who better to have on this week than the head of innovation at the FCA? Now, here we are at the Singapore FinTech Festival, which is a huge event celebrating its 10th year this time around. So it's fantastic to have Colin on the session. Not only is he the head of innovation at the UK regulator, but he's also the chair of the Global Financial Innovation Network, which is a network of more than 70 organisations, including regulators across the globe, who are committed to supporting financial innovation in the interests of customers. Now, there's a very big UK delegation at the event this year, much bigger, I think, than in previous years, with significant numbers of FCA, Bank of England and Department of Business and Trade staff, and indeed City Minister Lucy Rigby, who was here earlier in the week. Colin, it'd be great if you could start by just giving us your reflections of the week so far and some of the big announcements that have been made.
Yeah, of course, good to be here. And it's been a really busy week here at Singapore, as you mentioned. 10th anniversary, so a great reason to celebrate. And also 60th anniversary, of course, of Singapore. So wonderful time, lots of interest in the relationship that we have with Singapore, especially the relationship between the FCA and Monetary Association of Singapore, which we'll cover maybe a little bit more later on when we talk about that. I've been involved in a number of panels. I've been moderating, chairing, and also generally just getting active with those participants and those experts in the field, talking about subjects like quantum, AI, tokenization, the big topics. It's been a buzz. It's been a buzz around the city. And it's, I think, the first time I felt that in a couple of years. So it really feels like we're moving in the right direction.
Singapore is really seen as a very innovative state. They have a huge amount of initiatives that are going on around all manner of subjects. We also had the Insights Forum at the start of the week, which is a session particularly for policymakers. And as we say, a number of announcements have been made this week across a large number of areas. What would you think would be the highlight or some of the standout points that you'll be taking home with you?
Yeah, I think firstly, the level of expertise has been incredible. You know, regulators grasping the nettle when it comes to innovation. It's certainly really apparent to me that everyone wants to understand how they can innovate securely and safely and move into the future. The biggest, I think, standouts for me, in our own world, we've made that alliance more formal by creating the partnership with MAS. It's an AI partnership. It's opening up that route to allow us to work together and link some of our initiatives so that we can get a much smoother transition across borders. And that kind of bilateral work is really important for us, experimenting, testing the boundaries. But then I think as technology is moving so fast, bringing a real sense of purpose to what we're doing around AI through our AI lab has been very, very critical here. We've managed to share our story with a huge number of people here, and there's a lot of interest in what we're doing in terms of the supercharged sandbox and the firms that are coming through that. It's a first in the world, so of course we're going to be centre of attention for that kind of activity. And then lastly, probably it's the work around stablecoin. I mean, stablecoin has been talked about a lot, and tokenization on the side of that, of real world assets. How are we moving forward? How are we working with the bank in the UK to provide the right kind of clarity, the guidance, and the policy that's going to allow us to really benefit over the coming years from this new and landmark technology?
Well, let's take each of those in turn if we can. The FCA has obviously been doing a huge amount of work on AI independently. You created the AI lab not so long ago, and there's a number of underlying innovation services that are a part of that lab initiative. So now expanding that into Singapore is a very positive step. I think they have quite a similar policy objective and approach when it comes to principles and outcomes-based regulation. But tell us specifically about the UK initiative. How is it helping firms collaborate with regulators to deploy AI ethically?
Well, what we found is we need to go and talk to the industry and understand what they're doing. That's the first thing. So the initial work was on spotlight activity. We would go to firms, we would look at what they're doing, we would showcase some of the work that's in AI that's relevant to financial services. We then moved into our traditional sprint moments, if you like, where we engage with the industry in a 2-day hackathon. We look at the real challenges. We then translate those into policy. And for us, that was a real critical bringing together of industry experts, policymakers, and of course the innovation team knitting that together. From that, we really took some lessons. And the launch in June at London Tech Week with NVIDIA and the Prime Minister was a landmark. I mean, the Supercharged Sandbox is extraordinary. As a technical exercise, it's beyond anything we've ever done before. And so firms have come to us, I think, with an expectation this is kind of like another regulatory sandbox. And they've been really knocked out, really surprised. They've ended up in an environment which allows them all the enterprise tooling to build AI pilots and prototypes. We give them a vast amount of synthetic data to work with, and then we support them and mentor them. And we've got mentors coming from industry as well, so they don't just get the regulatory support, they get the technical and business support to really push forward. That kind of experimentation, I don't think has ever been done in any regulator anywhere in the world. And of course, I think that's what really attracted Maz to the partnership. We've got this capability now. We've got a similar regime, as you say. We've got a similar mindset, similar culture. We treat firms in the same way. We try to be innovative and move forward quickly, but in a responsible and safe manner. And that put together, when you do that across borders, that becomes extraordinarily powerful in a global world. So we both find advantage in working together for different reasons, and that's how it should be. We should be true partners.
Absolutely. And I think the announcement has been received extremely positively, which is fantastic. Let's talk about tokenization, because I know there's been work that's been taking place as part of GFIN, the IA, FCA, also published a paper earlier on this week in conjunction with the Singapore equivalent organisations. And I know that there's been a number of firms within the FCA sandbox and the innovation pathways who've been particularly focused on tokenisation, whether it's at fund level or within the asset level. But what emerging risks from the downside perspective are you most focused on, and how are the FCA innovation services helping on that subject?
I mean, we always have to balance risk and opportunity. That's our job to do that. And when you're looking at these kind of innovations in technology, I take a longer term view, I guess. I've been in the business of innovation for at least 30 years. So, this is not new to me. This is part of a digital transformation journey. And tokenization is part of that journey. So the risks are similar to other kinds of digitalizations. There are unique changes, though, here. So when you start to look at unpicking what we're used to in TradFi and moving to a tokenized world, there's a range of risks that we might need to look at, from ensuring that there's a one-to-one matching or backing through to actually, are these funds safe? Is a consumer going to be covered if something goes wrong? Are they liquid? Talking of liquid, actually, interestingly, we've been approached on an interesting fund based on backing assets of wine and watches. So there are some incredibly innovative, interesting new ideas that we have to really deeply understand. But actually, we want to encourage thinking which is new and focused on opportunity as well. But certainly, we think tokenization, the underlying technology, is an absolute game changer. But it's, of course, like anything, it's the responsible execution of that technology into a market safely and responsibly, which is our primary goal.
And the report covered that to an extent, certainly looking at how the design and the issuance of digital assets needs to take into consideration the requirements of the buy side to make sure that they're a success, and also covering all of these security matters. So on the conference floor, there are a huge amount of technologies that are being covered by the innovators that are here, but also the discussions that are happening at policymaker level. I think payments is a very significant area of interest at the moment. But you mentioned quantum there as well, and the FCA did recently publish a paper on quantum computing. And I think the UK is in a very good position in terms of the number of firms and certainly in academia that are looking at that. When it comes to quantum, which is obviously been well prepared for a number of years now, when do you think the actual tipping point is going to come, or what are the considerations that the FCA makes when it comes to quantum technologies?
Well, we work with other government agencies who have a great expertise in this area. For us, there's a clear roadmap. When you're considering safety and being quantum safe, there are very clear guidance around that. We're looking at ensuring that there's an inventory which is identifying all of your data sets that are quantum ready. And then there's a critical path for critical systems, which then follows on from that for the change to security. And then, of course, there's the thereafter. There's another 3 or 4 years of activity to ensure all systems are post-quantum secure, post-quantum safe, as is known, PQS. Now, for us, people in the halls, when we've been talking to people, they've had a concern around the decoding of passwords, for example, and this so-called Q Day. And I'm speaking on my final panel this afternoon on Q Day and preparing for Q Day. That's one risk, and the ability to decode a math problem is important for us to recognise, and the potential dangers around that are clear. But it's an identified risk. We have a plan and we have a arc of time in order to fix that plan. It's a migration issue. That's what it is. There are other concerns around the use of quantum and the application of AI and quantum together could present other risks that are unknown. So these kind of black swan events are things that we need to keep an eye on and be prepared for. So it's about preparedness. It's about engaging with the community to have those discussions. And it's also about educating the public, so the consumer, so that they're aware of the best ways to protect their own data sets. And I think that's a large task for all of us to come together on. And it's something we're going to lean into over the next year or two. You mentioned that I chair GFIN. I'll just correct you. It's actually 97 members. So we have a lot more now. A lot of people are interested in what we're doing at GFIN. So I guess that lift up of membership indicates a kind of interest in what we're doing. And one of the projects we announced this year was going to be for a start on quantum. So of course, there's a global interest in this as well. This is not something we can solve with the FCA in isolation in the UK. This is a partnering solution. We need to be working with all bodies globally together to help us optimize quantum, prevent the risk, and let us see the benefit.
And GFIN, of course, was initiated by the FCA initially, and the FCA's regulatory sandbox, which also has recently marked its 10th anniversary.
Yes, we celebrated with cake this week, in fact.
And that was something that was FCA's original idea, which has now been copied across the globe in many significant jurisdictions. In terms of what the regulatory sandbox has achieved, are you able to share a recent example of a particular fintech success? And what would you say to those emerging fintechs who are looking to partner with investment management firms to get their services off the ground?
Yeah, thank you. It's been a strong 10 years. I think many have copied us now, so I think this is a model that works. We are refining it all the time, so the modern regulatory sandbox looks nothing like the original one, but that's evolution for you, and as an innovation team, you'd expect that. A good example of maybe a firm that's come through our process is a UK firm called Zilch. They're a unicorn now. But when they came to us, they wanted advice, they wanted guidance, they came into our pathways. We suggested they applied for a license. It was something they weren't really considering at the time. We gave them our advice around this. And I'm really glad that they went through that process. It did take some investment. We helped them through that, as well as our brilliant authorizations colleagues. And I think that's the secret sauce. It's when you bring together the authorizations process, the innovation process, and then link it to supervision going forward. What you have there as an example in Zilch is someone going from startup, identifying a market opportunity, being given even more guidance around the potential for that opportunity, which even then they perhaps were aware of but weren't sure of which way to go. We helped them. It went through fairly quickly, and consequently they've become a very, very good success story in the UK. One example, there are many I could point to which also have benefits to consumers, also have benefits to the UK, and have become scale-ups, which is really what we're championing now.
Super, great to hear the success stories that come out, because that, I think, provides a lot of clarity and guidance for existing incumbents as well as those who are benefiting directly from the services. In terms of the other FCA services through the Innovate section that you lead, what would be a final thought for our investment management audience about how they can leverage the FCA resources for innovation?
I mean, we welcome everyone. And the whole point about the model that we have is that even if you're not a firm within a regulatory sandbox, or you're in the AI lab, wherever you're coming to us, whatever point of contact, my door's always open. I'm absolutely committed to having the conversations with the widest amount of stakeholders I possibly can. I'm ex-industry myself. I come from an industry background. I've delivered for the most of my career. So what I bring to the FCA is that network and connectivity. My primary goal is to communicate more about what we do. And I only can do that through these kind of events, these kind of podcasts, these kind of dialogues that I might have. I would encourage people to come and talk to us. I will ensure that we are listening and we're responding, so it gives you the value that you need. And of course, we're a pretty friendly bunch, so we're open for this kind of conversation. Don't be afraid. Come and join us on some of the tech sprints where we discuss really relevant areas of policy. One example I'll just draw on is Advice Guidance Boundary Review, which we ran earlier this year. It was a first policy sprint, and it directly led to an acceleration of that thinking. and the targeted support work that we're now doing. So there's real benefit to getting your voice in around the table and engaging with us as much as possible.
Well, that's a great call to action. Colin, really appreciate you taking some time out to come and talk to us today. It's been an incredibly busy but successful week as well. Great to see FCA and the wider UK delegation really waving the flag here in Singapore. So, Colin, thank you very much indeed.
No, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Join us for another episode of IA Talks Innovation in the coming weeks. Please do like, subscribe and share as wide as possible. Thank you.